figure we'd add some drama. Welcome to Boomerang's Give to Get Training on Map of Meaning. Master your communication and maximize impact and results. All right, so I was just having some fun here. Welcome, friends, to our training today, a map of meaning, and this is about mastering our communication and maximizing our impact and results. So if you're here, I'm going to hallucinate that you are wanting to improve and maximize every area of your life, and that this conversation, you've been inspired to come by the title of A Map of Meaning. What does that mean? And how we are going to master our communication and maximize our impact and get even better results. So first of all, I want to acknowledge you for being here, whether it's live or on the recording, because that says a lot about you. That says that you are committed to taking your life to the next level. And that's what Give to Get is all about as well. Not only that, one of the things as we grow our business, whether it's building Give to Get or and finding more boomers to align with, and or you have your own business, or maybe you have a relationship. Maybe you're a relationship with another person or two or many. That communication is vital, is necessary. And in order to be effective communicators, it's really powerful and instructive that we have a handle on communication and ultimately why we communicate. Right? If you think about the reason why we communicate is to influence, to share, to connect, to build relationships, to entertain. Earlier, we were having joke time, and I was telling poor jokes. It was entertaining because they were that bad, and that was one of the purposes behind it. But the other thing that we also need to remember is how important internal communication is as well. So as we master how we communicate, let's run it through the prism of both internal and external communication. Because if we can't communicate with ourselves effectively, we're certainly not going to be able to communicate effectively with others, if that makes sense. So I'm just giving you a code alert now, because I just want to share with you. I'm just going to give you a little. I know if you watch some of our other videos from me anyway, I shared a little bit about my personal history and story working with Tony Robbins in the music industry and an NLP master practitioner and trainer and board certified in neo-Ericksonian hypnosis. But I'm just going to give you now an insight into my head to look at a different kind of map. This is a mind map, and this is my mind map. This is kind of what I go through in my head when I'm having a transformative conversation. And a transformative conversation would be a coaching conversation, and it could be like public speaking. I try not to do this on a personal level, but get ready, code alert, here we go. My mind is a blank. No, I'm kidding. So here is, on a high level, a transformation conversation here. Now, we don't need to go through this whole thing because all of these are different philosophies and filters. We're going to focus on a few today, but you can see here one is the stories, right? Everyone's telling a story. We're going to get into that in a moment. Our 6 needs, the 7 beliefs that we have, the levels of consciousness, our spheres of influence. We're really going to dive into the behavioral trinity because this is the foundation anyway. Then we got our filters and triggers. This goes into anchors, past references, and then personalities. Who are we talking to? What is their identity? What are the masks they're wearing, or what emotional resources are they accessing? And that's not important right now, because if you want to learn more, you're in the right place. Through this program here, you can find a way to get into all of these through Give to Get. So if you're interested in any of these programs, reach out to us and we will provide them for you. But that being said, let's move into this conversation. So we have these 3 pillars of transformation. Now, all communication is transformative if you think about it, internal and external. This also works to every area of life. So this foundational philosophy is really what I use in all conversations at the base. Like everything goes through this. Our life is on this slide. So the first is state. Excuse me. So I'm talking about state. What I'm referring to is our emotional state. Where are we? What is the emotional fuel that is fueling the conversation? And this is so important. This is where we're going to spend most of our time on, because without this acknowledgement, we're going to run into a lot of problems. Because think about it. Have you ever been angry? Ever been in a conversation with someone and you were angry? And how did that conversation turn out? How was your communication? Did you ever get angry at yourself? And then what decisions did you make? What actions did you take? So we really need to, now I don't want to go down a rabbit hole right now, but during the last 2 years or so, or almost during this COVID insanity, what state have most people been in? They have not been in confidence and feeling groovy. Most people have been put into a state of fear, of confusion. Some then, when they're fearful and confused, they are easily angered. So communication has definitely been interesting at best with some. And others, I'm sure, I don't know if anyone has lost some rapport, maybe even actually lost some friends or family members because of differing opinions. And we're going to get into that now, because the crux of all of this is this map of meaning and our communication around it. Next pillar is strategy. Now, strategies are between the strategies and tactics, like they're both work together, but strategies is the plan, or where we're going, having some ideas as to, what we want to accomplish, and then navigating our way through it. So sometimes when you're in a conversation, and again, if you're interested, we could dive a lot deeper into NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, where we could, train you on sleight of mouth and things of that, where it's really strategical, where it gets into really understanding specific language patterns and frames and ways to dive in deep, but those are useless if you're not in the right state. So we don't need to get into that. And then the last pillar of transformation is our story. And at the end of the day, that's what we've got. At the end of our lives, what are we going to have a collection of? Stories. What do we hear from other people? Stories. As a matter of fact, tomorrow, right before we got on, you're like, oh, I got a story. Right? And you shared a story. So if you think about everything that we do, we find some way to share it, to communicate it in some form of a story.
On a scale of 1 to 5, would you give yourself a 5 on achieving what you want in life? If your answer is anything less than a 5, right now, I have something awesome for you. Achieving your goals and living your life at a 5 isn't easy. Most people aren't prepared to focus, stay disciplined, and do the everyday work that is necessary to achieve amazing results. But since you're watching this, then I'm guessing that you're not one of those people. And this is an opportunity that will change your life. Give to Get is a global program that brings together world-class coaching and combines it with empowering masterminds and networking opportunities. We provide 5-star guidance for the price of a cup of coffee a day. To find out more, click on the link in the description of this coaching session.
It's also how we learn. There's also, if you're interested in story selling, then again, reach out to us, because we've got all sorts of great opportunities. When you're in the right place with Give to Get as a boomer, to be able to have access to deep trainings on all of this. But let's stay on high level topic here. So let's look at this state here. So what we have here is we got our emotional state, and there are 3 things. The behavioral trinity have 3 parts that are vital to be aware of. We're not going to focus on all of them. That's in a deeper training, but I always want to give you a high level here because we have a short time. So the first piece of every state, of every emotion, of every feeling, whatever language you want to use around that, is physiology. Now, what does that mean? What is physiology? Well, it's just a fancy word for the way we use our bodies. Now, if you could take a moment right now and think of someone who's depressed. When you look at someone, can you tell with reasonable accuracy that they're depressed? And most people can, right? How would you? I say we have our friends here on here. We got Mauro, Steph, and Caesar. When someone's depressed, how does their body? Where are their shoulders?
Shoulders are definitely dropped.
Down. They're down. Yeah. And are they moving fast or slow?
Definitely slow.
Slow. Yeah. And are they looking up or down?
I'm sorry. Are they what?
Do they look up or down? Like, where's their head?
Down.
Usually down. Is their breathing deep or shallow? Yeah, it's definitely shallow, right? And what happens? Why do people, when they're depressed, do you ever think of people who are depressed? Oftentimes they sigh. So they're like, why? Because they weren't breathing, and their brain's going, McFly, we need a little oxygen. All right, so our physiology plays a huge part in our state. So conversely, if we thought of someone who is confident, who is full of like certainty, where are their shoulders? Up, right? They're usually up and back. Their head is up. They're breathing deep. They're moving fast. They've got a purpose. So we just want to notice where that is, because the truth is communication, believe it or not, is 55% body language anyway. So if we're going to master our communication, we have to look for congruency and notice what are we doing with our bodies. And you also know when things on a conversation isn't going necessarily the way you want it to, you may notice that if you ever have that happen, where it's like, ooh, something's not right. This conversation, I'm not really sure I'm buying what this person's putting down. I'm not picking up what they're mowing, right? So it's because oftentimes there may be some incongruency with their physiology. So note to self, notice what your body is doing when you are not in a state. Now, part of you may be thinking, like, why are we having this conversation about state? Well, this is what drives your conversation. Your emotions drive your conversation, your communication, both internal and external, and visual and auditory as well. And we'll get into that even more deeply. Next is a focus. So whenever you're angry, what else pisses you off? And odds are it's kind of everything. Right? Think about it. When you're angry, let's say you've had a bad day, you come into the office and someone says, makes a little joke or something. How do you respond?
All little things are irritating.
Yeah, all little things. You're like, what that? What do you got? Oh, you got a problem? Right? But when you're feeling good, when you're feeling confident, when things are going well, they say the exact same thing. And you're like, that's funny. Right? So we really need to be aware of when we are taking personal responsibility of communication. We've got to remember the only person we can control is ourselves. So we need to know the desired outcome of the conversation, of the communication, and also then go, is this the right state to be in order to be effective in our communication? And this is going to go deeper. So there's an old saying, what you focus on expands, right? So there's also a saying, seek and ye shall find. So in our conversations, in our communications, if we are looking for a particular response, we're going to get it. Now, we're going to dive even deeper into this in a moment, but I'm just curious. Have you ever heard the term confirmation bias? So essentially, confirmation bias is when you are looking to have whatever situation, whatever information, whatever communication we're getting align with the bias that we have, and it confirms it. So if we are focusing on a certain anything, we will find a way to make whatever's happening fit into that. So if you're angry, whatever's going on, you will find whatever information that comes in, make it fit to justify your anger or fear or joy or gratitude or love. So what are you focusing on in your communication? What do you need to focus on in order to be more effective at communicating your outcome, both, again, with yourself and others? So if you're angry, what are you focusing on? If you want to be grateful, what could you focus on? If you want to feel love, what could you focus on? You know why comedians are so funny? Well, you know why funny comedians are so funny? Because they look for things to be funny. So these are things to be aware of. And then last, which we'll spend probably most of our time on, is language. So all communication has language, both internal and external. And what drives that language? What directs it? Our focus. The focus of questions. How do we ask questions? How do we use our words to create our focus? What kind of questions are we asking? Are there presuppositions in those questions? For example, if you're feeling kind of confused or upset or not all together, and you might find yourself asking a question like, why am I so stupid? Well, if you ask, why am I so stupid? Your brain looks for evidence of it, confirmation bias, because you presuppose that you are stupid, and then it will find evidence of it. Why am I so fat? Well, the presupposition is that I'm fat. And then my focus is going to be looking for the evidences, the confirmation bias that will support that statement. Now, I wonder, if there are other areas in our lives that we are seeing this happen, that people are taking positions around a thing that you may not feel the same about. You may be in a different state about, but because of what they focus on, because of the language, the questions that they ask, that it creates a differing position. And again, do our other trainings and you'll learn even more about beliefs and all of that. But we want to see the power of this right now and why it's so important that we maintain confidence, that we maintain curiosity, that we maintain compassion, because that's the only way that we can be successful, truly successful, holistically successful, by having confidence, certainty, gratitude, love, all of these high vibrating states, as opposed to fear, anger, anxiety, frustration, and so forth, because no one is effective when they're that way. So if you're a business owner, if you have a relationship with someone you care about, you know that if you show up angry or fearful or full of anxiety and trepidation, you know that you're not going to get great results, because we don't make great decisions or take great actions when we are not in that. And this is where, have you ever said this or had this happen where you go, oh man, I shouldn't have said that? Well, if you've ever experienced that, that was because you were in a state that was not congruent with your desired outcome. So when we're going to master our communication, the first thing we need to do is really be aware of what state am I speaking from. This is how we maximize our impact. Now, why is that important? Well, because all of this, from this, certain decisions are made. This is where the map of the meaning comes in as well. You see, nothing at all has a meaning except the one we give it. A thing happens. Doesn't mean anything. It just happened, right? So when we're angry and a thing happens, what meaning do we give it? You're wrong. You're a jerk. You did that on purpose. You have evil intent. You have also all of these crazy things, which may or may not be true. We don't know. All we know is the filter we ran it through confirms the bias that we had to keep it congruent. It's the strongest need in the human psychology is to be congruent with itself. Werner Erhard, he created EST, Erhard Systems Training in the 70s, and then that became landmark. He and Richard Bandler and John Grinder all kind of came up together. And here's what he said. Life is empty and meaningless, and it's empty and meaningless that it's empty and meaningless. So choose. Now that's freeing because it's not that life is empty and meaningless. It doesn't mean it's meaningless, like it has no purpose. It means it has no meaning except the one that we choose for it. And Tony said nothing has any meaning except the meaning we give it. So the state we are in when we assign that is going to have a huge influence. We're going to find ways for that to fit into whatever meaning we gave it. I remember when I was getting, before my book came out, before I was published by HCI and Simon & Schuster, and the guy that was my contact there, when I had spoken to him, he was like, he's like, oh yeah, this is going to be great. And he was like the nicest guy and all of this. And I was like, okay. And I sent him some information and he didn't get back to me like for a while. Like it started to become like months. And I started thinking to myself, I was like, oh man, like he didn't like it. He didn't like what I sent him. He's embarrassed. He's avoiding me, and then is it possible if I started thinking like that I could have been like, well, screw that guy and F him. And I'm not going to participate with this. And, oh yeah, I'll just go somewhere else. And I'm taking my book and I'm going home. Like, is that possible if I allowed myself to be not in the state of confidence and certainty and ownership? If I was feeling insignificant and insecure and worrisome and full of anxiety around it, I could feel that way. And I texted him a couple times and he never got back to me. He was ghosting me. So I'm like, what the hell? So then months later, I would text him every once in a while. I just reached out to him again. I'm like, look, dude, are you okay? Like, I haven't heard from you in months now. And I'm just checking and making sure everything's okay. And he responded back, who is this? And I was like, this is Doug. Is this Steve? He goes, is everything all right? He goes, oh my gosh, no, it's not. I'm stuck in England. I lost my phone. My father passed away. I'm dealing with all this stuff with the family and all this stuff. And I finally got a new phone and I was able to transport my number. Oh my gosh, how are you? As soon as I get back, I'm going to take care of it. Interesting how sometimes we allow our emotions to get the better of us and we can miss out on opportunities. Think of it. Let's say you had a business opportunity and you had a feeling, a meaning around a bad experience that you had. So every time you thought about starting a new business, every time you started about asking for a sale, or in the past you had some negative situations, then you have a meaning. Well, sales are bad. Oh, I get rejected. And, you create all of these experiences around it. But the truth is, meanings are just distortions. Now in NLP, we teach this to you. There are three things we're always, always, always doing in communication and language. We're always deleting. We're always deleting information, right? Our brain cannot process all the information that comes in, so we're deleting it. And I'm sure you've had this happen where you're speaking with someone and they only heard what they wanted to hear. Right? They deleted everything else that you said, and then you'll ask them to share kind of like they'll maybe respond because the state that they were in, they gave a non-resourceful meaning or non-resourceful interpretation, deleted a lot of the things you said that were really the important bits, shared back stuff that was like, wow, that's not even that. And it's a distortion. They actually distorted it. They were like, because some people take mountains and make molehills, and other people take molehills and make mountains. It's all part of mastering our communication here, is that understanding. So they come back to you and you're like, wow, that's not even what I said. Wow, you took that the wrong. Have you ever heard that? You took that the wrong way, or have we ever said that? Well, that was a distortion because the meaning was not understood. And then there's generalizations. We don't need to talk about that right now, but it's basically a shortcut. Again, we dive deep into this in our speaker training and our NLP trainings, but like door is a generalization, right? How many different, like Mar, you're going for a special handle, right? It's a handle that goes on a door, right? All doors have some way of being able to open it, whether it's a handle or an indentation or whatever, but our brain doesn't need to figure it out every time because, oh, okay, that's one of those handles. Oh, it opens this way. No, it opens that way. And then you go, oh, door. Tangent. So what we want to do is ask ourselves, what meaning are we giving this situation or experience? And then also, when we're having a conversation, notice what meaning are they? Because communication is not the intent, it's how it's received. So we need to take personal responsibility here. The world would be so much better if we all took personal responsibility, so that if we were having a conversation and it wasn't going well, we stopped like, okay, wait a minute. I just want to be sure that, the information and what I'm sharing is aligned with my intent. Because right now it feels like there might be some misinterpretation here, and I take full responsibility in perhaps not sharing exactly what's on my mind. So we want to ask, what meaning are we giving it? And then if it's not working, if you're feeling stressed, then question it. Like, well, wait a minute, is this true? Like, is it true? And then we want to go a little bit deeper. Like, do we know for certain 1,000% exactly what this means? Now, I know that sometimes people get a little persnickety when you start questioning things and doing that, but let's just start with ourselves. If we're not feeling resourceful, if we're feeling stressed out or anxious or angry or pained, well, what meaning are we giving it? If our conversation is not going well, we may just want to ask, well, I wonder what meaning they're giving it, and start working from there, right? And then we could dive in deeper here. It's a little bonus content, is to really look at, how do you feel when you hold this meaning, right? How do you react? How do you respond, right? What actions do you take based on it? And if it's not taking you where you want to go, either in your business, in your personal life, in your relationship, both internally and with others, well, then time to start questioning it and start being willing to look at what could really benefit you. So then we could ask, who else would you be, and how else would you behave without that meaning? So if it didn't mean that, then how do I behave? How would I communicate if person X said Y, and I gave it to mean they thought I was a jerk, or they thought they didn't want to do business with me, or they thought it was too expensive, or they thought that, this business didn't make sense. Well, if I didn't use that meaning, if that meaning didn't exist, how might I show up? Well, I might say this, I might try that. I might be willing to reach out to that person. I might be willing to apologize or forgive that person. I might be willing to ask for the sale or make the offer. So notice, if you're not getting results, if you're not getting maximum results in your life, personally or professionally, you may want to look at what meanings are you giving where the resistance is, or if it really is resistance. And then look at, what is the positive intent? All right, what else could this mean? This is a really powerful experience in improving communication. And I only use this as this isn't an intentional political, this is just an example. So let's just use an extreme. We have gun control. Whatever your opinion is on guns, it doesn't matter. The context of this is this. The person who is, let's say, for guns, who believes in a person's right to, basically bear arms, they're not sitting there going, it'd be great so that everyone has guns and they could kill each other. Like, that's not what they're thinking. The positive intent behind the meaning of the Second Amendment to the person who's pro gun rights is not to be able to kill people. It's to be able to defend themselves. And I'm talking about the average person, not the criminals, not all of that. Let's take all of that out. Just use one. Let's isolate it a little bit because that's where the challenges are. Now, the people who are anti-gun rights or anti-gun holders, or whatever position, whatever they call it, they're not thinking, what would be great is if no one had any guns so we could kill them, right? They're not thinking that either. They both have positive intent. They both want to be safe. Is this making sense? Right? So now if we step back and we go, okay, let's, instead of arguing with someone about process, let's dive into purpose. What's the intent? What are we looking to get done here? When this goes into business, if we focus on the outcome, what do we want to do? We want to serve the customer. We want to get this deal done so that everybody wins. We can then step away from getting attached to how it gets done. Because if you think about it, anytime you were super successful, it didn't happen the way you thought it was going to anyway. Like, Marl, Boomerang, Give to Get. Did it happen exactly the way you thought it was going to?
No, we went through multiple stages.
Oh, so you didn't get mad at anyone for it. You were just like, this isn't working. It didn't mean that it wasn't going to work. And it didn't mean that whoever didn't deliver was a jerk. It didn't mean any of that. As a matter of fact, there were probably some breakthroughs that you had by being willing to go through the conversation, the process, communicate effectively so that you could maximize the results of your communication so that you could create Boomerang as it continues to grow. And Can Meet and all the other experiences. So everyone on this training, think about it. When you were successful, when you got things done, you were able to look at what's a positive intent, stay focused on the outcome, be flexible with the approach. And when things happened, you're like, okay, let me give that an empowering meaning to move forward. And then you could ask, right. So, it's basic, simple, but not easy, because this is why the state comes in really powerfully. If you're angry, it's really hard to give it an empowering meaning, right? When you're grateful or confident, a little easier. So then you could just kind of position it like, well, who would you be when you hold this new meaning? If you were to make a new meaning, the meaning is this person wants to get to this outcome. I think that's great. I want to help them with that. This business wants to accomplish that outcome. Okay, I get it. So then what is possible? And this is where we get into possibility thinking. What is then possible when you hold a new meaning for whatever is going on? And then if it's not what you want, then look at it again. Okay, well, what else could it mean? And find another meaning. Well, how about this? What else could that mean? And then when you find, oh man, I could do this. I could be that. Oh, okay. Now I could own this. Now I can go in with confidence, which puts us in that more resourceful and effective state. So a little bit of a high level NLP look, but I just want to show you then how this all shows up, and then we'll give you another angle. So here's what happens. This is the human behavior model. So here's a dude, he's hanging out, and 2 million bits of data come in. And we could only process literally, it's like 175 or something bits of information at one time. A lot is being deleted right now. And when I'm talking deleted, like even the fact that, you're not even sensing your blood pulsing in your left pinky toe, until you focus on it, you're like, oh yeah, I can feel my pinky toe, right? So it's all coming in through visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, and gustatory. So it goes through our brain here. It then starts creating internal representations. Then through that state, that we are in, it influences or confirms the state we are in, and they're all looped together. And then we just basically take whatever action and make any decisions. Another version of this where, remember I said we generalize, distort, and delete, goes through all this. This, again, it's more about metaprogramming, NLP and all of that, but you'll see how important the state is to influence the behavior. So let's just dive into language a little bit and how that can be interpreted. So Matthew 7:7, ask and ye shall receive. So really, we need to hold in reverence and how powerful our internal and external dialogue is. This is how we identify and describe our experiences. And we do that through our declarations and the questions we have, right? And that's what's going to that process is going to get us through how we're going to make our decisions and our beliefs. So we really want to be understanding what are we saying habitually. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. But it's crazy. There's well over 250,000 words in the English language. When it comes to emotions, 50% represent negative feelings, 30% positive, and 20% neutral. So essentially what that's saying is it's easier for you and I to be in some sort of pain than it is to be positive. We're listening more for words that express challenges, pain, stress, fear than we have in actual positive language. So why is that important? Well, we need to be aware about what we are using in our language, right? So what are some of the words that we use habitually when we're communicating? Now, I'm sure, you've met Walter and Terry and one of the things when we're on our calls with the Alchemist Nation, we are very aware of and don't use words like try or should or but or need, right? So what we do is we notice the power of those words, but also is there a difference between problem? Just say it out loud. You don't have to turn on the mics, but say out loud, I have a problem. Now say, I have an opportunity. Which feels better? Which do you feel more like you can handle without getting there's a negative association, a negative meaning to problem, but an opportunity. Hey, I'd love an opportunity. Right. So I sometimes refer to challenges as AFGOs, another freaking growth opportunity. But there's also a difference between I'm pissed and I'm irritated. Big difference. Right. So catch yourself. Are you saying I'm full of rage right now, man? How could they do that to me? How could they rip my heart out? Notice what language are we using? So if you're at home watching this, you can stop this tape and take a moment and come up with as many positive words and or phrases you can that you would like to be using in any context. What are you using habitually around challenges and opportunities? What are you using words like problem, or are you using things like opportunity? This is going to be great. It's not to be delusional. This is to keep us in a higher vibrating emotional state. And then you can come back when you're done. So the way we direct our focus is through those questions. So think about what have been some of your habitual questions or ritualistic questions. What are the questions you find yourself asking often? Why did they do this to me? How could they do this to me? It should be this way. It should be that way. They're wrong. That's effed up. Are we noticing? Now, by the way, not to go down any rabbit holes, just I would say based on today's economy, market, and political climate, I might suggest no longer watching news or scrolling Facebook or anything like that, because it's going to naturally get you asking questions that give you crap answers. Think about it. Why would you even look at you? Because basically you're asking to yourself, what's the next effed up thing that's going to happen? right? And then what state does that put you in? A non-resourceful state. And then someone wants to do business with you and you show up not in your strongest. You want to get close to your spouse or your lover, your family, your kids and whatever, and you show up like crap. You're not maximizing your opportunity. You're actually depleting your energy and opportunity. So if you want better answers in life, ask better questions. And, are you asking open-ended questions, right, that are going to fill that blank with negative answers? My mom sometimes does that. She will actually ask me, like, oh, are you still having a problem with X, Y, and Z? And I'm like, what? Like, you're actually asking me about problems. Now, we'll go down another quick path here, and we dive deep into this in some of our other trainings. But some of us have this experience of connecting with like woundology, where we connect with our problems. We have, and this is no besmirchment to any movement, but Me Too movement was about sharing problems. And I'm not justifying, minimizing or anything. It's just an observation that it was a connection over problems, not necessarily the positive solutions. Think about the people you hang out with. Do you celebrate like success or do you commiserate over issues? Now, there's always going to be a little bit of both because successful people solve problems, solve challenges, create opportunities. So there is that balance. We must have awareness. It's just what prism are we looking at? When we're looking at problems, are we looking at, how can I solve this? How can I learn from this? How can I help more people? Not, why is this so effed up? How could this be? God, how could you? Right? Those are very different questions. So, I'll repeat, the ask and ye shall receive, seek and ye shall find. This is the power of our communication. If you want to maximize it, know your outcome, understand that how you show up, you bring you to the conversation. And if you are bringing negativity, if you're bringing anger, if you're bringing depression, if you're bringing frustration, whatever, any non-resourceful states that you may bring to that conversation is going to keep the conversation there. When you come from another perspective, more positive, more hopeful, more confident, more certain, more compassionate, more passionate, all of that, you are then, passionate could be either way. Some people are passionately angry, but you get the point. Now, on a very high scale, I just want to give you another quick thing as a bonus material here around communication, just to be aware of. And again, we go way deep into this, into deeper communication trainings. This is just a high level, see how much we could fit a 10-pound ham in a 2-pound bag here. So one of the ways you could also have some challenges is the modality in which you speak. So you want to maximize your communication. You also want to utilize all modalities. So how many senses do we have? What do you think? You're guessing. You're thinking. Most people say 5 or 6. And I would say 6 or more, but the 6th sense is usually measured through one of the 5. So if you remember, what was that movie with Bruce Willis? I see dead people.
Sixth Sense.
The Sixth Sense. There you go. Of course. Yeah. So that character saw and heard those people and may have felt them. So we have visual, auditory, kinesthetic as our primary measurement. So sometimes we see visions, we have visions, we may hear voices, or we get a gut feeling. We also communicate that way. So some people are very visual when they speak, right? And those visual people, the way let me ask you this. Have this happened where you've been speaking to someone and for whatever reason, it just feels like you go like that. But the truth is you were saying the same thing. You actually were in agreement. It just went like that. That may be because one person was saying things like this. I see what you mean, right? Looks good. see you later, right? And they're talking in pictures. But if you say, when someone's talking in pictures and they say, and you say, I hear what you're saying, like, how could you, what do you mean? It sounds good. No, I think you're misunderstanding. This is like, did you see how big it is? How bright it is? Oh my gosh, right? So we have sometimes some interesting, and again, this is very high level. Usually it's when there's a problem, they would say things like, I'm not hearing you. And you go, how could you're not hearing me? I couldn't be any clearer. Don't you see it? Don't you see? And they say, no, I'm not feeling it, because they might be kinesthetic. Feels right, or no, I'm not feeling it, or I grasp what you mean. Keep in touch, right? These are some ways that you know where this person is living in their mind. Are they seeing pictures, listening, having a conversation, or feeling their way around? So when you want to maximize that, this is one of the ways you do it. And again, we go very deep into it in our NLP trainings. So just so you can get an idea, visuals, that's going to be in descriptors of, color, black and white, 3D or flat, framed or unframed. Like, these are all some ideas of how, when someone is speaking visually, they're going to be expressing some of these submodalities. Auditories will be saying things like, we could stereo mono, the sounds could be loud or soft, it was fast, the rhythm, something's out of tune, something's not harmonious. These are ways you would hear that. And then kinesthetic, they would be sharing things around, this hot and cold, pressure, location, vibration. Now, some of this is going really deep into how you can unpack where someone is at and do some pacing and leading and so forth. But high level, also, you want to look at their modalities. We went through a lot in this short bit of time here. So I'd like to open it up if there's any questions, clarifications, because I will take full responsibility, personal responsibility, if I did not articulate some perspectives and philosophies effectively. Any questions or thoughts?
I love this. And I never really thought about that whole communication with the senses. And it's so funny because that happens so much more frequently than you really think, especially when you start thinking about it when you mentioned it. It's like, funny enough, Yana, who is also on the call, she just messaged me, she's like, yesterday, because we had that similar conversation where one of us is in the visual and one of us is in the the audio, and we're just like saying the same thing but bouncing back and forth. It's amazing. And now I'm definitely going to be listening for those key little points. And I have one question. I really like that the acronym you used, AFCO. What were all the words again for AFCO?
Another, freakin, or effin, or however you want to use it.
Yeah.
Growth, opportunity.
Okay, growth. That was the word I was looking for.
Because every time we have a challenge, think about who you are today after all the challenges you've been through. Have you grown since you've started on your path in life?
And that's exactly why that caught my attention so much, because especially through the whole give to get process. Oh, I can't tell you how many AFCOs I had. It's mind blowing how many. But,
then that's a different meaning, right? It's a different meaning. It doesn't mean all is lost. It means opportunity to grow.
Absolutely.
Different relationship. And sorry that we just waited till you took a bite, Steph, but you had a question? You can...
Come on.
We'll have that on the gustatory.
No, my question was, because sometimes like when you face like challenges or like problems and stuff, if it's okay to say like, oh, this is a challenge, like does your mind capture it correctly, like in a positive way, or
so just checking ecology, what is a challenge to you? What does it mean when you have a challenge?
Well, a challenge, I replace like a problem with a challenge, but I don't know if I should just replace challenge also and say something else.
Well, try it. Right? Say it right now. Say, I have a challenge.
I have a challenge.
Now say, I have a problem.
I have a problem.
Which feels better?
Challenge.
Okay. Now say, I have a challenge.
I have a challenge.
Now say, I have an opportunity.
I have an opportunity. Oh, I have an opportunity.
So try it. Right. Some people get inspired by having that resistance, right? So as an example, the really successful weightlifters love when the weight is too heavy. Like that's a challenge for them to lift that. So their experience, their relationship with challenge that is that growth. So they get excited, like, I'll put more on. It's going to be too heavy, right? Because they know, like, when do you get the most growth? The first rep or the 10th?
The 10th.
The 12th, right? When it's like, oh my gosh, it's even more than I could handle. So they get the ones who are super successful at that type of growth, their relationship with the pain, with that resistance is unique. And that's why it's sustainable. If you're not going, like, again, you just want, if it feels great to do opportunity, great. But if you get excited about a challenge, maybe challenge is appropriate, or maybe for certain experiences it is. Maybe you go, oh, I love a challenge. Some people say that. I love a challenge. Other people like, but I love opportunities.
And what about when you, because I have a friend and we were kind of arguing about this, we had different perspectives because they had like this affirmation, and my friend, he wants to be a kind of like a prophet. So like he has this affirmation that he says, and he's like, I want to be able to like, I guess like state his knowledge without putting fear in people. But like, I just feel like the word fear in general, I think that's a word to eliminate, correct?
I would, but again, without entire context. But yeah, so the manifestation proxy kind of works like this. My mom, she had a story to kind of give you, to exemplify taking your friend out so we can look at it from like we're looking at someone else's car as we're talking about fixing another one. So my mom, when she got married, she almost didn't. The day of her wedding, the man she was going to marry was had health challenges, and he didn't really take very good care of himself. And my mom was like, I don't know. I don't want to be a caretaker. I don't want to be a caretaker. I don't know. I don't want to be I don't know if I could do this. I don't want to be a caretaker. So what was she saying? Be a caretaker. Yeah, because your brain doesn't hear don't. Your brain doesn't hear negatives. All it hears is evidence of or not, truth or not, existence or not. It can't do negatives. So long story short, he ended up continuing to not take great care of himself. He ended up having multiple strokes, and she became his caretaker for almost 20 years. Or about 15, she was his caretaker until he just recently passed. And the reason why I share that is she didn't necessarily manifest that. She, though, did manifest staying in that relationship and experience caretaking. So what would be the opposite? What does your friend want to inspire?
He wants to give like the word of God without like, I guess, coming off so strong and putting like fear in people.
So my question, if I were coaching him, I would ask, how do you want them to feel?
Okay.
So rather than I want to share the word of God and come across too strong and not put them in fear, or without putting them in fear, say I'm going to pronounce the word of God while inspiring faith, while inspiring, passion, while inspiring belief, while inspiring confidence, whatever, that outcome is, and focus on that. Like, could you imagine a pitcher coming up to the bait, go, man, I hope I don't throw a ball. right? No, they go, I want to throw a strike. I want to throw a strike, right? They're not thinking what they don't want. They're thinking what they do want. Or they're throwing, man, I hope we don't miss, right? What golfers do, they visualize their shot. The most successful golfers visualize their shot before they take it. So in their mind, it's already done. Now, does that ensure success? No, but I'll tell you what, you're guaranteed failure if you imagine yourself not making it. So to your friend, it's noble. Obviously, no one wants to, kind of cause fear. Yet, if that's what we're looking to avoid, our brain won't, it wouldn't even be able to avoid saying things fearful because it's thinking about not creating fear. Don't think of a purple elephant in my hand. Do not think of a purple elephant in my hand right now. Stop thinking of the purple elephant in my hand right now. Even if you were able to not do it, you had to first do it to know what you weren't going to be doing. So you have to actually visualize the purple elephant and then remove it, which would then put the purple elephant in my hand anyway.
So that goes under reverse psychology, right? Reverse.
Well, I think it's positive psychology.
Well, because when you say don't do something, but the brain captures it like, yes, do that. That would be reverse psychology, correct?
Yeah. So there's an element to that, but then now we're getting into a deeper level of NLP and psychology is understanding if someone is towards or away. So if they're an away person, then you talk about what they don't want. If they're an away person, you talk about the thing that's going to make them go away. If you're talking about a towards person, you talk about what they want to experience, and then they'll go towards it, or one's going to just, while they're avoiding it, it'll naturally send them towards what we're trying to get them towards. But yeah, there's elements and there's some gray area in that, but great question in observation, how to use it.
Thank you.
May I give a little point to that as well? Estefani, when you look at Boomerang, right? I can go into this and constantly say, will people sign up? Well, what if they don't? What if they don't? What if people don't join the membership? What if? If that's all I'm thinking, what's going to happen? Right? So what Doug is saying is, if I'm going into this and saying, I'm going to be helping millions of people, this is going to help millions and millions of people. We are going out there and we are creating something that is not anywhere to be seen. And it's going to just do incredible things for so many people. If I keep pushing that, and that's where my mentality is, that's where things are going to go. So with your friend, it's the same thing. If he's always saying, well, I'm scared that, they may not fall. They may not like this. People may not. That's exactly what's going to happen. He's shutting himself down.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I was just wanted to prove my point and tell him that I'm right.
Well, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy in your relationship with him? So you might find a way to be, a little more by sharing. Well, yeah. And his intent is he wants to help people, right? Say, hey, look, I love that you intend people. And next time if he brings that up, I wouldn't go, hey, but if it comes up again, say, oh, wow, I was just thinking about that. I love your affirmations. Those are awesome. And so I get it. You don't want them to feel fear. That's great. What do you want them to feel? Just curious. Like what is in absence of the fear? You want them to experience the true depth and breadth of the love of God and the faith? Yeah. Whoa. And then he may naturally go, ooh, that's good. Yes, I want him to experience that. It's not that I don't want him to experience fear. It's that the fear will prevent them from experiencing that. So let me just focus on what I want them to experience and share that experience rather than focusing on avoiding, right? Because that's the other thing. Like, here's true story. You ever see like these car accidents that happen in the middle of the desert and there's like a pole like here and then 100 yards away there's another pole, or a rock or something. Well, where does the car always end up hitting? The pole or the rock, because they're going, I hope I don't hit the pole. Right? And they end up driving into it, not just because they're trying to avoid it. And then when you're driving the car, you're looking for an address. When you look to like where the address is, it just goes right to that. So wherever you're focusing on, whatever it's putting your mind's, experience to, it will naturally take us there. So we just want to be clear as to, what, because there's an H in it, what we want.
I have one more question. So sometimes the thoughts in my head are negative, but I do my best to shut them off with like saying, speaking live, like saying good affirmations. Would that like kind of like counterbalance it, or like the thoughts in my head are still like?
Well, you can't have thoughts in your head and speak different ones at the same time. First of all, it's very difficult to do. I would also do something with your body, radically shift your body. So, do jumping jacks, sit-ups, run around the block, do something to like really have an impact on your body, change your physiology. And also, ask for the positive intent. When that negativity comes in, that voice inside you is looking to protect you. So then what's on the other side of that? You're protecting me from pain. You're protecting me from failure. You're protecting me from some growth opportunity. What's on the other side of that? What do you want from me ultimately? And it's like, well, success, happiness, joy, safety, all of that. Then you could now, again, get represented to what you want to experience, not what buying into what that inner voice. And again, I know we're going deeper down, like some conversations, which, there's more time to be spent on. And yet just changing your physiology, that's great. Saying those words out loud, put on some music, like do anything you can. Cause like, have you ever had this happen? Let's say, oops. What happened to my audio here? Let's say, we had a business meeting coming up, right? And you and I were in an argument. I have a business thing going on with Morrow, waiting for his call, but you and I are in an argument, right? Now, how many of us, if we're honest, we have enough voices in our head, we could have group therapy? Right. So sometimes we have our own internal battle. So you and I are arguing. Now, we've been arguing so long that I know that I'm right and that you are wrong. And you know that you are right and I'm wrong, but we've forgotten what we're arguing about. You ever had that happen where it's just gotten so much into it where you've just got to stand your ground. You don't even know what ground you're standing anymore. Kind of sounds a little bit like what's going on in the world today. Anyway, so then Morrow and I'm waiting for a call from Morrow because we've got this great opportunity with Boomer going on. And then we're in this argument. Arg, 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 arg. I'm right, you're wrong. You're like, no, you're wrong and I'm right. I'm like, no, arg, arg, arg. And the phone rings. Hello? Oh, Morrow, what's going on? Yes, awesome. Yeah, I've been waiting for this call. Great, let's get together. Cool, I'll see you there. Now, what were we arguing about? And then I have to get myself back into state. So what you want to do is interrupt that pattern as much as possible to break up that whatever was going on and like re-present yourself to what you're wanting to experience. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you, Dad.
You got it. And Yana, I saw you when you got your hand up too. That was great. And I saw you unmuted earlier.
I don't want to interrupt, but it's not more of a question. I think I'm more had a comment. I'm, of course, fashionably late, but I'm going to have to go back and rewatch some of it. But I think I came in at the moment where you're talking about the attitude that you walk into a situation with and the energy. And Mara knows the product line that I deal with. A lot of times there's a preconception that we're super expensive. And I kind of, it's the attitude that you walk in and say, okay, well, yes, that might be the case, but there's other opportunity within, how you set yourself up for that conversation. So I think that was really on point what you were saying. And yeah, I'm definitely happy that I got to listen in on that from somebody else too.
Absolutely. And yeah, we can definitely do some training around, how to deal with those types of objections, because there's always ways around that, because you may be more expensive, but are you high quality?
Definitely.
Yeah. And do you have other people that could vouch for that?
Yeah, there's one sitting right there in the video, so Mara can definitely vouch for that. But yeah, I think it's more of...
Does it ultimately save money in the long run?
It saves you money in the long run, yes, but also more of a quality and more of a convenience of having a certain product. So it creates a different experience. So yeah, that definitely worked in my favor a lot of times.
Right. And so that's what effective communication is. Through your questions and through your declarations, you shift their focus off of price and onto value.
It's or the solution, essentially. We provide solutions, what we normally say.
Right.
So
yeah, but the solution is valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the benefit, right? So there's so many ways to go around that. And there obviously is a much deeper conversation to understand how they're asking questions. Are they visual? Are they auditory and kinesthetic? Are they so there's other things. I'm sure Mara could also, do you guys do disc over there too, Mara?
So we're familiar with this, but we're not talking about it, no.
Okay. So that's something you guys could maybe do in the future as well, is do some disc training and then understand some of their communication and their behavioral styles. What's going to move the needle? Are they a high D? Do they just want, the results? Or are they, an I and they just want to chat about it? Are they an S where they're wanting to see, how's my family going to like it? How's the team going to dig it? I'm curious about my, my significant other's opinion. Or are they a C and they want all the data on, the specs on it and it all kind of referenced that way. And Mara, we could do, trainings like that in the future with you guys, but there's so many ways, like communication, you cannot not communicate, right? It's impossible to not communicate, because even not communicating is a communication. Silent treatment, brutal, but effective. So when we understand that and the depth of it, this was a really high level 30,000 foot view where we were showing you the city. We haven't gotten into the cities here. We just gave you some the tour. So, we can certainly do more, but you can obviously see how deep all this goes. And the more prepared we are to communicate, the more we can maximize our opportunities. And that's all I have to say about that.
Doug, brilliant. Love it. You're awesome. Oh, there's a thank you. I was waiting for that screen. I'm joking. But no, that was very, that was awesome is the best word for it. That was just fantastic. And you're great.
Thank you.
And, great comments from everybody. And thank you for everybody else's involvement. And yeah, let's call it. That's good. Awesome.
Love it.
Doug, thank you. And we look forward to seeing you again next week.
Amen. God bless you.
Have a good one, everyone.
Awesome. Peace.